Don. Welcome to Don't Worry, I'm Finite. Today, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about photos and photography. And if you don't know already, I've been putting my photography up for sale. It's over at don'tworryimaphotographer.com. I'll link that below. And the 5 photos that I put up there is what I'm going to talk about today. I chose 5 of my favorite photos from the past year to put up for sale, and I wanted to keep it limited. But the point of this episode is that I want to talk about the photos specifically and photography in a printed medium as a whole, because the way that we experience photography has changed so much. Think about how many photos you take in a day and how much time you actually spend looking back at them. You know, we get our Instagram fix by scrolling and scrolling. We see images everywhere. We take 100 photos of, a cute cat on the street. We have photos of everything, but how often do we actually go back and spend time looking at them? And I think this kind of cheapens our experience of the art of photography in a way, because think about how you might experience art at a museum. You'll go stand in front of a painting and you'll take time to look at the texture and think about how that image was created, and think about the lines on the canvas and the way the light hits it. And with photography, it's been smaller recently, I guess. You rarely see a large printed photo, and I think that makes them much more engaging when you actually see them printed now, because it's so often that we see them just on a screen, and usually on a small screen. So you take this photo, you take the time to put the effort into it. And this is true of much art, but photography specifically for me, I feel like you spend a lot of time on a photo setting it up, editing it, making sure it's cropped correctly, making sure it looks great. And then, somebody scrolls by it on Instagram, double taps it if they like it, if you're lucky, and then they scroll on. Maybe a 5-second interaction. Maybe once in a while you get somebody who's interested in photography that zooms in and peeps those pixels. But for the most part, we're just scrolling by, double clicking, and then moving on to see the next thing. That little dopamine fix in our brain that needs the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, doesn't give us any chance to really sit and experience that image. And as a photographer, that's a strange feeling. It makes you go like, how do I get my work to be seen? How do I get my work and the meaning behind it out there? How do I get people to pause for a little bit longer? And I think printing photos got lost a little bit along the way because we're so used to using our devices for everything. So I really wanted to get back to printing photos and showing the photos in a different way, the way they're meant to be seen. I'm printing them on metal canvas and on photo paper, however you tend to like your photos. Some photos work better in a certain medium, and I have a lot of landscape photos, of course, and that is the majority of what I put up there. That's 4 out of those 5 photos. But I hope you might give them a look, take a look. You can buy one, you can get a gift card for somebody else, you can buy an image for somebody else. But I'm going to get right into talking about those images specifically. And I want to start with my favorite image. It's the first image that's on the screen right now. Now, take a look at that. You can see the foreground image and the background image. I love this image so much, and because this was my first day in Chile, in Patagonia. I arrived at Torres del Paine National Park this morning. I took a bus from the city in Argentina where I stayed to a small city in Chile, Puerto Natales, and then the next morning I got a very, very early bus, and it dropped us off in this national park. And the views in were striking and incredible. But what happened was you have to catch a ferry to the start of this trail I did. I was doing a 5-day hike, and you have to catch the ferry first to get to the beginning of the trail, and then you kind of hike your way back sort of to where you started. And this image came from missing that ferry and having 2 or 3 or 4 hours to kill. I can't remember how long it was, but I walked over this ridge, It was very, very windy. The Patagonian winds are uh, well documented. But I walked over this ridge and down along the edge of the water. You come up and over the hill, and I just saw these mountains, and the mountains were looking beautiful. I was heading toward the overlook to these mountains that you see in the background, and I saw this tree, just sinuous branches reaching up to the sky, reaching out toward me, and I just stopped in my tracks and I composed this photo. And I could tell when I took it that I was already in love with it. Uh, Part of it was the fact that I'm in Patagonia. This is a place I've wanted to go for so long, a place that I've wanted to see all of my life. Seeing these photos made me want to go there, and just reminded me of how lucky I am. And seeing this tree just kind of reaching out to the world made me think, this is all worth it. This is worth the time and effort and money that it took to get here, because catching something like this is exactly what I wanted. And it also recontextualized my experience with the ferry, because I stood in line to catch the ferry, and after I missed it, I was a bit disappointed, because I was going to lose a good portion of the first day when I was planning on hiking to a glacier after getting to the other side of the lake, and this kind of put a wrench in the works there. But once I got on this trail and I saw this image, it all felt like, well, if I had caught that ferry, I never would have seen this image. And this is still one of my favorite photos I've ever taken. Um, so yeah, we can move on. But you know, I always try to look for the positive in when things go wrong, because things going wrong is all a matter of perspective. It's all about expectations. And if our expectations don't get met, then we think something has gone wrong. But happy accidents like this can happen. And I am very grateful that I missed that ferry so I could catch this image. All right, so the next photo is also from Patagonia, because why not just stick in that area? But this is actually in Argentina. This is in El Chalten, a small city amongst the mountains where Fitzroy is. It's probably the most popular or famous mountain in that area. You've probably heard of Fitzroy. If not, you've probably seen the little Patagonia logo on somebody's shirt or hat. That is the mountain range. This is the mountain range that they use in that little logo with the little mountain peak elevations. And on this hike, I was hiking to this overlook, and this is one of those things where you take photos and you go, there's no way to fully represent how it feels to be here, but you have to do your best. And this is one of those photos that I got that made me go, okay, this is kind of how it felt to be here. You can see these three hikers in the foreground on the trail. They were ahead of me for a little while, and I had to use them as an element in the image, because it has that little leading line of the path going toward the mountains. It's where we're all headed. That's why everybody came here. Everybody's on their way to that mountain. So I wanted to lead your eye to these hikers who are hiking to the right, which leads your eye even more to that mountain range there. And you see these huge, huge mountain peaks, these huge towers in the background just looming there. And you can tell the distance. And I think by the way that I've zoomed this image, and I've used the telephoto to compress it a little bit, so it does kind of give you the scale of this image and the scale of this mountain range and this city and this whole area of Patagonia. It is huge and it is grand, and the colors and the grays and the blues and the greens in this just are fantastic. I love everything about this image and how it came together, and I hope you like it too. I hope it gives you that feeling of like grandeur and adventure that I felt being there on these trails finally. Hey, Kat. Kat's going to join us for the rest of the episode. So let's move on to, while we're in Argentina, let's head south to Ushuaia. The end of the world, as some places call it, or they call it themselves, Le Fin du Monde. They have this wonderful hiking system, and they have a national park there, but this is not actually in that national park. This is just outside the city of Ushuaia. I've hiked up this wonderful, very difficult hardwood forest to an open meadow where my feet were getting wet and it was marshy and muck, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it all the way up to this glacial lake, but I'm very glad that I did, because once I got up there, the views were incredible. Just, loose scree and rock on the sides of the mountains. Very different type of landscape and rock than I had seen anywhere else in the area. So being up high and above a lot of this landscape really gave me a sweeping view of the mountains in the area. You feel small in this area. You feel like you are amongst like majesty and this incredible array of mountains all around you. So when I was on the other side of this lake, people were walking along the trail, which was just on the other side of the water, and then the trail drops back down into the valley. Because of the way the trail was set up, all of these hikers were lined up right along the edge, and these hikers that you see in the image, they were in this perfect line. They were just perfectly spaced out, and I just shot a few photos with this reflection. If you know me, if you know my images, I love reflections. So I saw these people, I saw the reflections, and then I saw this perfect spacing. So it was that perfect moment that I had to make that decisive moment, click the shutter, and I got a few images, and I'm so happy with how this one turned out. Not only the reflection of the mountains, but that moody cloud landscape in the background, the reflection of the hikers, that perfect meted out. It really gives you, again, the scale of this whole landscape, these small little people along the mountain range. And I think the moodiness really sets up for you to put yourself into the image and feel how I felt there. The low clouds, it was cold, it was sucked in, it was a little bit wet and damp, and I think you feel all of that in this image. And it's cool, it's blue, but you have this little offset of the black figures, the silhouettes reflected in the lake. And again, just couldn't be happier with this image, and makes me want to go back there. I wish I could be there right now. The next one here we have, we're just going to finish out with the landscapes first, and I'm going to talk about this image. It's so bright, such a contrast to the last image. It's also a vertical image. So this is from Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State in the U.S. on the West Coast. Very Pacific Northwest vibes in this, very wet, very green. Verdant is the word that comes to mind. And this snaking cascade of water coming through. This is one of those things that kind of reminds me to not give in to your expectations in some ways, because when you go to a place like Mount Rainier, you look at it and it's this, ice glacier covered mountaintop, and it's huge and it looms over the city of Seattle, and you can see it from all over. And it's very impressive. As you get closer to it, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you keep thinking you're almost there. But no, you still have a while to go. So you get there and you see all of this green suddenly encompass you, and you get inside and you see the water rushing all around, and it feels much more like the forests of the Pacific Northwest that you had left not too long ago. And then you realize there's so much more to that park. And no matter where you are, this is not far from the roadside. You can walk very briefly to get to this view. You might have to jump over a few things to catch this specific angle, but I just love how green and how bright and how fresh this feels. I feel like on a winter day like today, looking at this image, the contrast from what I'm seeing out the window of snow and dead trees, this life is just so invigorating, and it feels like something that could really bring me out of kind of that winter gloom that you might feel when you don't see the sun for a few days. So I love this image, and I love the moss, and I love the green, and I love the water, and I'm really glad I was able to get this with a long exposure to catch the movement of the water. And I think I kind of timed it pretty perfectly there. Let me know what you think as well. I want to hear your thoughts on all of these images. So love this one. It's a bit different. Speaking of different, we're going to go to my other vertical image, my last image, which is the image from Japan. Now, I'm not going to specifically say where this is in Japan, but this is a city that I really enjoyed walking around, which I can say about many cities in Japan. They're very walkable. You'll see the way the streets are set up. You kind of have to walk just on the edge of the road, but everyone's very respectful as they pass by, as they drive by. But the thing is, these streets, they just kind of wind forever. And you see the crossing wires, and you see all the lanterns, and you see the lights hanging. And there's just something about that busyness that makes me happy. Like I could stare at these forever. And I just stood and tried to find a good composition here. And I was really happy with the way that this one turned out, not only because of that kind of vanishing point, but I caught the bicyclist coming across the road. And I stood there for a while waiting for a cyclist to go by. You don't usually have to wait very long in Japan to see a cyclist go by. So I was able to catch that person kind of right there in the middle. They're wearing like a white top, so it offsets. And I felt very strongly because I think the color in this distracted from the imagery and the geometry and the motion of everything happening here. So there's enough distraction kind of happening, but it keeps you interested and it keeps you looking around the photo. It keeps your eye moving around the photo. I didn't want that color to be another thing, so that's why I desaturated it. I went with a monochrome for this one, and I think this one also just kind of really kind of stands out to me. That's why I chose this one cityscape among the other landscapes, because I love cities as well, especially cities like this, where it feels like you can just walk and you can find things and you can explore. And there's always something to see, always something to look at. And I think it's just kind of a good reminder of how beauty can be found anywhere if you're looking for it. So that is my final image. I hope you liked all of these. I hope you like at least one of these. Let me know which ones you liked. Let me know if there's any specific kind of photos you'd like to see more of. And let me know if you like this kind of photo analysis. I have been excited about getting back into photography and being more mindful about shooting and taking my time and not taking it for granted. Because when you take 1,000 photos a day on your phone, you start to kind of make it into something that's not that special. And photography has always been special for me. So I am excited about more photography content. I hope you are too. I hope you like these images. Please, if you would like to buy one, go over to don'tworryi'maphotographer.com, and you can still use Don't Worry 24 to get $20 off one of your purchases. So please use that, whether it's a gift for the holidays or a gift for yourself or a gift card for someone else or yourself to use in the future. Check that out. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and subscribing. There's more to come. I'll see you in the next one.